Hey guys, welcome to my review of the Zpacks Altaplex. This has been my main tent for over a year now. You may have seen it pop up in some of our trail reviews. But I took my time for this review because this is a very popular tent among thru hikers, people who do very long hikes, months on end. And they're kind of a tough crowd when it comes to reviews of this kind of thing, because many of them feel that basically you don't have any business posting a review about something like this if you haven't slept in it for, say, at least 100 nights or so. And there's a lot of contempt, some of it justified, for the kind of YouTuber who sleeps just a couple of nights in one of these and then makes a review with a clickbaity title about why it's the best ever or a must buy. And like I said, a lot of that is valid criticism. But the thing is, I don't hike for 100 days a year. And I doubt that I ever will, since I have a life. But I do have a couple of things to say about the Altaplex, so consider this a disclaimer. This is a review from the perspective of someone who mostly does shorter 3 to 5 day hikes in non-crazy weather. If that sounds like you, if you too have a life, then stick around. The fact that I've been using this for over a year already tells you something, because we've reviewed other tents on this channel, and so if I'm mainly using this one, then that must mean that it's better than all the other ones, right? Well, kind of. Let's break it down into pros and cons. And I'll start with the cons because there's more of those. There's 5 cons and only 2 pros. But the pros are big pros. The first con is quality control. And I noticed that pretty much the moment I took my Altaplex out of the package. Let's rewind to the beginning of last year. Hey guys, this is my second day as a proud Zpacks Altaplex owner. It took a while to get through customs, but now it is here. I watched some videos on how to pitch it and found it a nice spot in my backyard. It looks quite handmade, for loss of a better word. I don't really mind it. It's just different from the usual factory produced ISO certified stuff that you usually buy. But then I got out and I noticed this. So I think I'm gonna have to contact Zpacks support, because this is clearly not just a cosmetic issue. I'm sure my pitch wasn't perfect, but I don't think it was user error. So let's hope that the video you're watching now is called Zpacks' awesome customer support or something along those lines. Fingers crossed. Now, I must say that Zpacks set this straight right away. They had me send it back to the States, paid for shipping, fixed it, and had it back to me in a little over 3 weeks. That did mean I had to pay for customs again, unfortunately, but I can't really hold that against Zpacks. So, less than stellar quality control, but great customer service from what is still a relatively small cottage companies with products that even look handmade, ragged edges and all. And I have no issue with that whatsoever, but the quality control needs to be on point at prices like these. And if you buy this just in time for a big hike and it arrives with the tape coming off, then great customer service won't be doing you much good. The Altaplex is made from this very crinkly Dyneema, also known as DCF or Cuban fiber. And that makes it very well suited for use in rainy weather, because Dyneema is very thoroughly waterproof and it doesn't absorb water at all, unlike, say, nylon. So as you'd expect, I had 0 issues with leaking or soaking through, and also it's been very easy to dry and wipe off, just because it's such a simple piece of kit. Unfortunately, it may be rainproof, but it is not idiot-proof. And that has nothing to do with the Dyneema, but with the way that the Altaplex is built. The second or third time that I used it, I wasn't expecting rain during the night and hadn't taken the necessary precautions, because the way the Altaplex works is the bathtub can be pulled up with these elastic cords to keep the rain out. And I had failed to do that, and while tossing and turning, I had pushed my sleeping bag to the side, into the mesh, and into the rain. That was a beginner's mistake, of course, but I had the same thing happen last month when I thought that the bathtub was in the right place. I kicked my quilt over the edge while sleeping, woke up with a partially wet floor. Zpacks would probably call this user error, and I would agree with them for the most part. But I would have liked the Altaplex to be more foolproof, because I'm probably not the only one to very often be very tired by the time we get to camp. So mistakes happen. rain can be unpredictable, and it would just be nice if we wouldn't have to choose between it being optimally ventilated with the cords loose, because that way you get a lot more airflow underneath, and it being entirely waterproof with the cords pulled all the way up. The Altaplex is a mid-shaped tent, as in pyramid, and so it needs only one pole, albeit a fairly long one, and it is quite high in the middle. Now, I do like the height, because there is something depressing about spending lots of time in a tent that is just too low, but of course, the part of the Altaplex that gives you that headroom is A, pretty narrow, and B, pretty close to the middle and thus the pole. It's a bit of a weirdly shaped living space, and if you're coming from something like a Zpacks Duplex, or indeed the more budget-friendly, semi-rip-off Lanshan 2 Pro, which was my main tent before this one, it can take some getting used to. We recently reviewed the Sea to Summit Telos TR2, which is a completely different kind of tent that weighs twice as much as this one. But I did find myself appreciating the verticality of the walls and the overall livability in that one. And about those walls, when it comes to ultralight tents, there always seems to be a lot of discussion about the maximum height that a person can be to fit in a certain tent. And the reason that people are so focused on this is that most ultralight tents, like this one, are single wall tents. And that means there's nothing between you and the condensation on the fly of your tent. So that means if you touch it with your fancy down sleeping bag, it will get wet. If you get up in the morning and you bump into the walls of your tent, with some bad luck, you'll be treated to a condensation shower, which is no fun. And there are two main ways for tent manufacturers to make sure that it doesn't happen. One is obviously by making the tent floor larger. The other is by making the walls more vertical. And I guess this is the main thought behind the Altaplex, making it a better fit for taller hikers by making it higher so that the walls are more vertical. And if you look at the Zpacks Duplex, which I believe is still Zpacks' best-selling model, it's true that the tent floor is actually the exact same length. All the extra tall people space comes from the verticality, and it can be further enhanced, just like on the Duplex, by using the side guy lines and pulling them outwards. Now, I'm 6'1", 185 centimeters, and I'm okay with the length, but if I'm being honest, I had expected a little more clearance. I think it also comes down to your sleep habits. I sleep with my knees tucked in, but I often stretch to my full length as I'm waking up. And I definitely can't say that I never touch the walls, especially in the morning. So it's okay for me, but when I read on the Zpacks website that it is, and I quote, the ideal ultralight tent for hikers up to 6'6", 6'6", that's almost 2 meters. I don't know, that sounds like a bit of a stretch. And if you're a tall hiker and you're on the fence about which tents are gonna suit you, be sure to visit Fit My Tent, which is an excellent free resource for the measurements of ultralight tents. I guess you could argue that living space shouldn't be in the cons column of this review. It's not necessarily bad, it's just different. And when people try the Altaplex, I find that they don't always like it. Make of that what you will. The Altaplex has a very large rainbow door, very easy to get in and out when it's open, but it does have some downsides because you always have to open it all the way if you don't want to risk tearing it, and zippers are very often the first point of failure in any tent. And then when you do, especially on muddy terrain, you have to be careful about where you put it because it can get pretty dirty. But the thing that I find most inconvenient is this anchor style thing that the storm doors attach to. They chose not to use zippers exactly because those fail over time and probably because they weigh more. And I get that, but you have to reach so far out of your tent to close these. And it takes so much practice to do it single-handedly that I think most people are gonna find it a hassle. Admittedly, permits have been notoriously difficult to get in and out of for thousands of years, so maybe I shouldn't be so harsh on Zpacks, but it is one of my least favorite things about the Altaplex. The last con is the price. This is a $669 tent in the States. In Europe, if you include taxes and customs, you'll be closer to 950 euros, which buys you pretty much any single person tent on the market, including high-end tents like Hilleberg. The main reason for those high prices, apart from it being made in the States, is the price of the Dyneema fabric, which costs manufacturers at least 5 times as much as more common materials like polyester or nylon. And the funny thing is that fabric, the thing that makes it so expensive, also makes it look like, I guess, one of those plastic greenhouses, or indeed like trash bags. It's hard to think of anything more expensive that looks cheaper. And sometimes when you set one of these up on a camp space, sometimes you have people doing a double take and being like, okay, are these guys homeless? I don't mind that. If anything, it reduces your chances of it being stolen, at least here in Europe. If you venture out onto the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian Trail, I guarantee you that most hikers will know exactly what these are. Okay, that was the bad news, and by now you can probably guess what at least the first half of the good news is. The Altaplex is ridiculously light. Manufacturers will often call anything under 4 pounds ultralight. 4 pounds is a little under 2 kilograms. The Altaplex weighs 437 grams, 15.4 ounces, making it one of the absolute lightest tents on the market. And to put that into perspective, when I go car camping with my family, I take a Cashaway Air Seconds 6.3 poly cotton tent from Decathlon, and that weighs almost exactly 100 times as much as this one. Pretty crazy. Do keep in mind that those 437 grams is without the stakes, which will add about 100 grams, 3.5 ounces, and either a very long trekking pole or trekking pole jack like the one by Zpacks, or a custom pole. That means that the absolute minimum weight of this whole setup is somewhere closer to 650 grams, a little over 1.4 pounds. Now, if you're just starting out looking to lighten your load, then you should know that there are many ways to do that and many ways to shake down that backpack. And if you already have a reasonably light tent, then buying something like an Altaplex is probably not your best first move. Chances are that you'll be carrying a lot of items that you don't really need, or that can be replaced with lighter alternatives at a fairly reasonable cost. But if you've already taken most of the cheap and easy steps towards saving weight, or the price is not really an issue for you, then of course switching to a tent like this can be an enticing prospect. The second thing that I really appreciate about the Altaplex is the speed and the ease of setting up. Single walls are usually pretty fast, but this one takes the cake. It's also not just setting up, but getting a good, satisfyingly tight pitch that is real easy. You just stake the two sides, making a triangle. You insert the trekking pole, stake the front, and the rest is pretty straightforward, real easy, real quick. I like that a lot. I just hate having to make tons of adjustments to get the pitch just right. And I also appreciate being able to set it up in the rain while keeping the inside of the tent dry. So 5 cons, 2 pros. I'll admit that doesn't sound like a glowing review, but I do plan to keep on using it, at least until something better comes along, as it usually does. There are some models from Durson Gear, Tarp Tent, and Bonfaz that I would like to try out. But I do honestly think that the Altaplex can be very close to a perfect tent for a certain kind of person. Someone who's not too tall, someone who doesn't move around too much in his sleep, who doesn't mind the way it opens, and above all, someone who really values the weight savings. I'm not entirely sure that that person is me, but who knows, it might just be you. I hope that was useful to at least someone out there. Thank you for watching, and see you around.